169,946 metric tons comprising maize, traditional grains, and wheat, while farmers and service providers, especially transporters, will now be timeously paid. The proposed marketing arrangements notes that there are 5 categories of farmers, namely, farmers financed under the Approved Presidential Input Scheme, Pumbudza Intwaza, self-financed farmers, NIAPS financed farmers supported by AFC and CBZ, farmers financed by private contractors, and farmers financed by ADA. Cabinet highlights that during the 2025-2026 marketing season, GMB has received 40,693.28 metric tons of grain from ADA and substantial intake from communal farmers for the strategic grain reserve. GMB also plans to aggregate grain from farmers through its 1,804 collection points and 89 depots and storing on behalf of clients, thereby providing a convenient and cost-effective solution. GMB will also introduce an in-transit grain storage facility to enhance Zimbabwe's grain imports and supply chains. Pertaining to tobacco, a total of 330.6 million kilograms of tobacco has been sold at an average price of USD $2.50 per kg. This is an 11% increase in volume and 25% decrease in average price compared to the previous season, where 299.2 million kilograms were sold at an average price of USD $3.36 per kilogram. Auction tobacco prices in 2026 have shown gradual recovery despite periods of mid-season volatility. Average auction prices increased from around USD $1.60 per kilogram at the start of the season to approximately USD $2.54 per kilogram by selling day 71, reflecting improved market performance in recent weeks. As of 18 June 2026, a total of 5,079,907 kilograms of cotton had been marketed compared to 310,625 kgs marketed at the same time in 2025. Regarding the winter wheat production, a total of 128,459 hectares has been planted, surpassing the target of 125,000 hectares by 3%. ADA has planted 59,880 hectares, representing 92% of its target. The target for barley remains 6,500 hectares and Irish potatoes being 9,000 hectares with an expected production of 243,850 metric tons. Cabinet noted and approved the Zimbabwe Sugarcane Industry Development Plan 2026 to 2035, which was presented by the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Honorable Dr. Frederick Shava, as acting chairman of the Cabinet Committee on National Development Planning. The Zimbabwe Sugarcane Industry Development Plan 2026-2035 seeks to transform Zimbabwe into a globally competitive, climate-resilient, and innovation-driven producer of sugarcane and sugarcane-based products by 2035. The plan focuses on diversification and value addition through expanded ethanol production, renewable energy generation, industrial byproducts, biofertilizers, stock feeds, bioplastics, and other downstream industries derived from sugarcane byproducts such as molasses and bagasse. The plan envisages modernization of the products in order to de-risk and guarantee viability of the industry. The objectives of the plan also include infrastructure modernization, increased productivity, renewable energy development, research and innovation, and strengthened partnerships between government, the private sector, development partners, academia, and local communities. Through coordinated investment and strategic collaboration, the industry is expected to become a key driver of sustainable economic transformation, employment creation, and green industrial development. The plan is anchored on 7 pillars, namely enabling policy, regulatory, and institutional frameworks, enhancing productivity and climate resilience, promoting product diversification, market, trade development and value chain diversification, research, technology and innovation, inclusive growth and smallholder development, and finance and investment. The implementation of this strategy will significantly boost both sugarcane yield and hectarage through improved access to affordable finance, enhanced irrigation infrastructure, and efficient regulatory support. More efficient production systems will lower unit costs, reduce average market prices, and strengthen the industry's competitiveness regionally and globally. Increased processing capacity is expected to result in expanded ethanol output and increased sugarcane exports, thereby ensuring sustained profitability across the value chains. The specific quantifiable milestones to be achieved by 2035 include, inter alia, the following: increasing sugarcane yield from 81 metric tons per hectare to 110 metric tons per hectare, increasing sugarcane production from 400,000 metric tons to 500,000 metric tons per annum, expanding ethanol production from 155 million to 600 million liters annually, increasing electricity generation from 23 megawatts to 200 megawatts, and boosting sugarcane exports from 100,000 metric tons to 200,000 metric tons. Cabinet considered and approved the programs for the National Heroes Day commemorations and Defense Forces Day celebrations as presented by the acting chairman of the Cabinet Committee on State Occasions and National Monuments, Honorable Minister of Local Government and Public Works, Honorable Daniel Garwe. The 2026 Heroes Day commemorations will be held on Monday, 10th August 2026, under the theme, and I quote, "Lest we forget," close quote, with the main event being held at the National Heroes Acre. The Ministry of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage has completed updating the names of all national heroes and heroines. The total number of fallen heroes currently stands at 254, with 4 of them, namely Comrade Petros Kumalo, Comrade Shumirai Wekwete, Comrade Joseph Zeti Dube, and Comrade Herbert Zava Sambo, having been declared posthumously. As part of the 2026 commemorations, the Ministry of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage has embarked on Phase 2 of the rehabilitation of Zimbabwe Liberation War heritage sites in Mozambique and Zambia. Under this phase, the ministry is focusing on 4 sites in Mozambique: Tembwe, Nyangao, Doroi, and Chikwalakwala, and the completion of 6 sites in Zambia: Freedom Camp, Nampundwe, Nkush, Mlungush, Kavalamanja, and St. Mary's, Kabwe. The ministry also envisages to start works on Boma site in Angola, where a cenotaph with a roll of honor will be constructed, as well as the construction of a mass grave, ablution facilities, and fencing of the site. The Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services will conduct media blitz at the national and provincial levels through jingles and adverts before, during, and after the event. The ministry will undertake national and provincial branding of the commemorations through banners, billboards, corrects, and LED screens, as well as the printing of regalia in the form of T-shirts, caps, and an updated guide to Heroes Eka book. The ministry will also hold a Heroes Gala in Mashonaland West Province. The Rural Infrastructure Development Agents RIDA will cover motorized grading, opening of drains, and spot dumping in all provincial Heroes Acres and district Heroes Acres. This will be done throughout the 60 districts by the Roads Department. A total of 20,000 liters of diesel will be required for the activities. The Water Resources Development and Management Department will drill boreholes in the provinces ahead of the 2026 Heroes Day commemorations. Regarding entertainment, Diana Samkange from Mashonaland West Province, Indo Sakusa, the Shining Star from Bulawayo Metropolitan Province, and either Sulumani Chimbetu or Jah Praiser will provide entertainment. Mr. Chiteretere from Masvingo Province will also perform as the small poet for the main event. The Ministry of Local Government and Public Works will hire a total of 126 Zupco buses for both the main function at the National Heroes Eka and for all the 10 provinces. Regarding the 2026 Defense Forces Day celebrations, the nation is informed that preparations for the event, which is set to be held at Rufaro Stadium, are underway. The event will be held on 11 August 2026. The theme for the 2026 celebrations, and I quote, is ZDF guaranteeing peace and stability for the attainment of Vision 2030, close quote. The highlights of the celebrations will be as follows: the ZDF Community Assistance Week, the address by His Excellency the President, the military parade, military displays, entertainment by civilian groups, and ZDF Sports Day. The address to the nation by His Excellency the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces will be the major highlight of the celebrations. The ZDF Community Assistance Week is the prelude to the 2026 ZDF Day celebrations and will be carried out from 27 to 31st July 2026. During the period, completed projects constructed by the Zimbabwe Defense Forces working together with partners will be handed over to beneficiaries. The Zimbabwe Defense Forces will mount a military parade and conduct military displays as part of entertainment on the day of the celebrations. Rehearsals for both activities will commence on 27 July 2026. Entertainment by the Zimbabwe Defense Forces will be complemented by performances by Jah Praiser, Shield Sport Family, and Sulumani Chimbetu. In the afternoon, the main activity will be a soccer match between the Zimbabwe Defense Forces select team and the Namibian Defense Forces select team. Government will provide transportation and food for the delegates. The Ministry of Health and Child Care will ensure that a seamless health and disaster preparedness plan is in place, while the city of Harare will ensure uninterrupted water supplies during the period of the rehearsals and on the day of the celebrations. Cabinet considered and approved the report on the update on the Zimbabwe National Disability Expo 2026 as presented by the acting chairman of the Cabinet Committee on State Occasions and National Monuments, Minister of Local Government and Public Works, Honorable Daniel Garwe. The Zimbabwe National Disability Expo 2026 will be held at Mucheke Stadium in Masvingo City from 24th to the 26th of June 2026 under the theme, and I quote, embracing disability inclusion in all sectors, a master stroke for national prosperity and economic development, close quote. His Excellency the President, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, will be the guest of honor and officiate at the Expo on 26 June 2026. Preparations for the event are well on course. Zimbabwe National Disability Expos are government's brainchild for the empowerment of the persons with disabilities. The expos provide a forum for persons with disabilities, ministries, departments, and agencies, civil society organizations, communities, and organizations of persons with disabilities to showcase the inherent abilities of persons with disabilities. It adopts a whole of government and a whole of society approach to take disability inclusion and empowerment as a collective responsibility. The Expo recognizes the participation of persons with disabilities by supporting them to spearhead the decision-making process and organization of the Expos. The organizing committee and its subcommittees are chaired by persons with disabilities, supported by the relevant government ministries, departments, and agencies, and technocrats. The 2026 organizing committee is chaired by Mr. Charles Mugwamba. The hosting of the expos rotates in the country's 10 provinces, thereby permitting disability inclusion and empowerment initiatives to be taken to lower levels and allowing communities to be the drivers and owners of inclusivity in their respective areas. In the spirit of inclusivity and empowerment, 70% of the entertainment at the expos is provided by persons with disabilities. On the official day, entertainment will be led by the Prisons Band, Greatman Gwaze, and Chipo Muchengwa. Both musicians are persons with disabilities. At Mucheka Stadium, a disability inclusion ablution block was constructed, and volleyball, tennis, and basketball courts refurbished in line with the principle of universal design to enhance accessibility for everyone. A total of 500 exhibitors are expected to attend, with 438 already having paid exhibition fees. The expo will be segmented with exhibitions running concurrently with planned side events during the 3-day period. The expo will carry an international flavor with a total of 24 exhibitors from 8 countries, namely India, Eswatini, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Rwanda, and Zambia having confirmed attendance. The international exhibitors will showcase their abilities and best practices while they benchmark the progress milestones for Zimbabwe and vice versa. Accommodation for exhibitors with disabilities and those from organizations of persons with disabilities has been secured at Masvingo Teachers and Masvingo Polytechnic Colleges, where 1,000 rooms have been reserved for the event. Other exhibitors would be accommodated at hotels, chalets, and lodges in the city. A total of 100 buses have been mobilized for Masvingo province, while 18 buses will be allocated to the remaining 9 provinces, bringing the cumulative number to 118. On the day of the official opening, food for all the 100,000 people that are expected to attend the event will be catered for by the government. The guest of honor, as per tradition, will empower persons with disabilities through donations. This year, the donations comprise pigs and goats, residential stands to be allocated to persons with disabilities, drawn from all local authorities in Masvingo province, a commercial stand in Masvingo city, hammer mills for small-scale miners with disabilities, water pumps for household and mining use, and solar panels, among others. The Ministry of Agriculture, Mechanization, and Water Development has already established the village business units at Jairos Jiri Center, Kopota School of the Blind, Henry Murray School, and Mukume School in Mwenezi. The nation is enjoined to note that Masvingo province has been a trailblazer in disability rehabilitation and empowerment. The late Jairus Jiri, who originated from Masvingo, was a towering figure in supporting rehabilitation of persons with disabilities across the country, and left a legacy in Masvingo and the country at large, which needs to be remembered and revived. It is also important to note that Masvingo has several institutions for the rehabilitation of persons with disabilities since the colonial era. These include Ngomahuru Psychiatric Hospital, Henry Murray School for the Deaf, Kopota School for the Blind, Jairus Jiri Training Center in Mucheke, and Mukume Primary School in Mwenezi. Cabinet noted and approved the report on the meeting of national coordinators of the Group of Friends in defense of the Charter of the United Nations as presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable Professor Emon Murwira. The fourth meeting of the national coordinators of the Group of Friends in defense of the Charter of the United Nations was successfully hosted by Zimbabwe in Harare from the 8th to the 9th of June 2026. Running under the theme, and I quote, effective multilateralism in a multipolar international order, from charter principles to practice, close quote. The meeting marked a significant diplomatic milestone as Zimbabwe prepares for its upcoming 2027-2028 term as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. The key outcome of the meeting was adoption of the Harare Declaration, which supports multilateralism and upholds the values and principles of the United Nations Charter. Zimbabwe successfully enunciated its foreign policy agenda, emphasizing dialogue, mutual respect, and constructive engagement as the most effective means of resolving conflicts. The meeting further provided a platform for bilateral engagements with countries such as Cuba and Russia. Cabinet received and noted the reports of meetings of the SADC Committee of Ministers of Trade and the Ministerial Task Force of Regional Economic Integration as presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable Professor Emon Murwira. The meeting of the 35th SADC Committee of Ministers of Trade discussed issues of particular importance to Zimbabwe, including Zimbabwe's implementation of outstanding tariff commitments, introducing of a 30% sugar and dairy products, rule of origin for wheat, flour, and implementation of the import and tourism levy options as a resource mobilization strategy. Zimbabwe committed to address concerns raised in order to comply with the SADC protocol on trade. Regarding the rule of origin for wheat flour, there was no consensus, and as such, wheat flour will continue to be traded without preferential treatment until such a time a consensus is reached. The meeting also considered a proposal to introduce import and tourism levies as a resource mobilization strategy to create a predictable and sustainable funding mechanism for regional programs. The meeting agreed that further consultations on the matter be carried out and make appropriate recommendations. The SADC 25th Ministerial Task Force on Regional Economic Integration meeting focused on deepening regional economic integration, strengthening value addition and beneficiation, increasing intra-SADC trade, and enhancing competitiveness of industries across the region in response to evolving geopolitical dynamics. The SADC Industrialization Strategies and Roadmap report highlighted notable achievements in investment promotion and policy harmonization within the region. Cabinet noted and approved the report on the high-level consultative conference on the next steps for the historic United Nations resolution on the transatlantic slave trade, which was presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable Professor Emon Murwira. The high-level consultative conference on the next steps to the landmark United Nations resolution on the trafficking of enslaved Africans successfully concluded on June 19, 2026 in Accra, Ghana, with the key outcome being the adoption of the document, and I quote, Accra Next Steps Commitment on Reparatory Justice, close quote. The position was adopted by all parties in the wake of the landmark United Nations resolution of 25 March 2026, which declared the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. In that regard, the conference sought to translate the historic resolution into an actionable global framework for reparations and historical redress. The framework created 3 global panels, which are the high-level global advisory panel on reparatory justice, global expert panel on the restitution of cultural artifacts, and the global legal panel for reparatory justice. The conference further provided a platform for the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade to deliver His Excellency President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa's statement reaffirming Zimbabwe's commitment to reparatory and restorative justice. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for presenting today's cabinet highlights. We now move to the round of questions. Over to you, colleagues.
Yes, Richmond Radio Zimbabwe. Mine is directed to Honorable Daniel Mugabe. Following the President, His Excellency Dr. Emerson Mnangagwa's mantra. Provincial
my question is, did you also look into protecting industries within member states? For instance, in Zim, we are seeing a lot of foreigners coming in with already finished products. For instance, we're going to have Coca-Cola Kono. We have a lot of finished products. So we used to have our locals doing recycling and then creating or coming up with finished products like plates and cups, but now we're having these being imported already. As a bloc, did you manage to look into protecting local industries and avoiding dumping into our spaces? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
However, some businessmen and corporates, they argue that Zimbabwe what plan or system do you have that might help mitigate disincentives of foreign investment, especially in the area concerning security of stores?
The question is related to you.
But you, Honorable Minister?
Thank you, Chief Secretary. The first question from Richmond Siakurima is directed to Honorable Daniel Garwe. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me thank the gentleman who has asked the question. Honorable Chair, we may want to know that the report before us is on the preparations for the Heroes and Defense Forces commemorations for this year. However, we've taken note of his concerns. We will upscale them and advise accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question from Takuchi Ambakwe is directed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Murwira.
Thank you very much, our chairperson. Thank you, Taku, for the question on intra-SADC trade and the issue of protecting industries of member states. I think what is very important is to start by noting that the trade among SADC member states stand at 21%, which means about 79% is coming from outside of the region. The African average is around 14%. So SADC is what we call the SADC industrialization strategy, which actually is trying to make sure that industries within SADC rise and also then increase trade amongst ourselves. The SADC industrialization roadmap up to 2050, 2063 is basically to encourage local industrialization. I will not be able to comment about particular incidents that occur within the SADC region, like the specificities that we have given. But what I can tell you is the broad policy of industrialization within SADC, as well as the Regional Development Fund that was proposed during the time of His Excellency Dr. Idi Mnangagwa as chairperson, and is now being ratified as a Regional Development Fund, which is quite an innovation. All this is meant to increase the level of industrialization within the SADC region and amongst the member states. When we talk about regional integration, we are talking about core investments. We are talking about value chains within the SADC. We are talking about integrated infrastructure. We are talking about integrated policies and so forth and so on. All this is to improve the amount of trade amongst ourselves, but you cannot trade things that are not produced. You have to produce the goods so that you are able to trade them. You know that SADC is a market which is almost 400 million people, and this can only be satisfied in terms of goods and services by production locally in the different member states. So the SADC protocol on trade is trying to break all these barriers. By breaking the barriers, you increase trade. One of the things which is very important, which I want to emphasize, is that opening markets, by definition, encourages production. It doesn't destroy production. It encourages production because you cannot produce without a market. So SADC is working on a framework which says open the borders amongst ourselves so that we are a community, because SADC is a community. So movements of people, movements of goods, movement of services must be seamless among the SADC countries, so that instead of trading 21% amongst ourselves, we should be trading 79% and above amongst ourselves. So what I'm concluding by saying is that the SADC industrialization strategy is about encouraging local industries. There might be incidents that occur here and there, but the overall goal should never be lost. This is for local production. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. And the last question from Chen Williams. Your question was not very clear, and it's not related to the presentation that I made today. Maybe in future, if you could be very precise with regards to who is supposed to respond to your question, I think you will be assisted that way. We can't even tell whether you are referring to security of tenure in terms of agriculture or other sectors of the economy, but maybe in future just be very clear and direct your question appropriately. Chief.
Thank you very much. We move to the second round of questions. Yes.
It's Taku once again. Back to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You highlighted that it's 21% and you want it to go up 79. What are some of the impediments that you're seeing as ministers in the region? What's causing this blockade? Because when you look at your global gap certification, for instance, someone has to go through a more rigorous process to land, for instance, vegetables in Europe or in some foreign markets. Like right now, China is trying to set up this new system for chilies. There's a whole list of things that need to be done. But we are seeing a lot of imports of groundnuts, round nuts at Zimbabwe Msika from Malawi. These are not even processed. So already there is trade happening. So what has been the challenge currently? Is it transport? Is it what is really stopping this intra-SADC trade from really taking off? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. Just one question from Taku directed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, our chairperson, and thank you, Taku, for the question. I normally would want to answer this question to say, what are the opportunities? Because if our trade is at 21%, it means we have a huge scope for improvement. And what we have been working on is a SADC integration agenda. Why we have SADC in the first place is because we had colonial economies. And we're now trying to break down the barriers which had been created by these old rules with the new rules that encourage integration. And those include, because you know, our economies were outward looking. That's why railway lines were leading to the coast, so that our goods go to the metropole, where the colonial cities. But it takes time to then reintegrate. But our forebears had this vision from 1963 and SADC from 1980, had this vision that we now have to make our economies look into each other instead of looking to the metropole. So that was the mega challenge. That's why there is SADC. And it's Kaizen, this philosophy of continuous improvement that we are always making. That's why we are meeting annually to make sure that we reverse this trend of outward-looking economies into inward-looking economies within the context of the intra-Africa trade, intra-SADC trade. So, and you are right to say that our market entry between, for example, Mozambique and Zimbabwe is very simple, but it's only that our economies had been geared to export to Europe. So it's a thing that we are working on, and that is the issue of SADC. So it's true that we are at 21%, and we must go up when we become an integrated region. So the challenge is low integration. The opportunity is high integration movements that we are actually making. But I think we are making very good progress, because in 2024, when His Excellency was 2024-2025, when he was the chairperson of the SADC, he made sure that we start the Regional Development Fund. And this Regional Development Fund is in the process of being established. It's almost in its final stages of being established. This will give us an opportunity to invest based on the funds that are within us. Because at some point, you are looking at the financial infrastructures that we have, is that we produce to put our money in banks outside. But what we are saying, through the Regional Development Fund, we produce to put our money inside and distribute it from inside. So it's quite a process which we are dismantling systems that had been established for over 400 years. But we are making good progress. That's why Zimbabwe's economy at this moment is growing at 5.5%, and Zimbabwe is growing basically because of the reversal of the policies that we used to have that were anti-integration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me thank